Welcome back, aliens. My name is Navin Reddy, and in this video we'll talk about which is the best language for AI. In fact, if you have seen my last two videos, we have talked about how can you learn AI for free, and then we have also discussed about that on this channel you will be getting Python tutorials. Now, on the other hand, we have this notion, if you want to get into AI or machine learning, you need to know Python, right? It's a base language. And some people are getting confused now that is it Python the only choice? Do we have other options? People who are coming from Java background or C++, can they go into AI using those base languages? So let's find out in this video. When it comes to AI, language is something which actually doesn't matter. Because see, in AI we do so many stuff, right? Example, understanding the problem and then solving it and then converting that into an algorithm which you can implement later. And when you are implementing it, that's where we will need a language, because we will be using some libraries, we'll be using the language syntax, and then we'll be implementing it. Now, which one to choose? And that's a bit difficult question, right? And to answer that, we will go for three things here. The first one is the ranking. Now, ranking will be depend upon the number of people using it and number of libraries available for that. The second category we'll focus on is your area which you will be working on. Maybe example, sentiment analysis, maybe NLP, or maybe fraud detection. So we'll talk about those areas, and at the end, we'll talk about your background, and then you can decide which you want to go for. Now, when it comes to ranking, let's list those top 5 languages. In fact, those languages have been ranked based on the number of use and the number of libraries available. So the first one is everyone knows is Python. The second one is Java, then we have C++, then we have JavaScript, and at the end we have R language. And of course we have some other languages as well using which you can implement machine learning. Now once we got the ranking, let's go for the second one, which is area. So which depend upon which area or depend upon which domain you are working on, your language will change. Example, when it comes to NLP or when it comes to sentiment analysis, people normally prefer Python because it has so many libraries available. And or maybe as a professional, you have chosen data science as the first profession. In this case, you don't want to focus much on the language, right? Because let's say you are working on data science or you're working on machine learning. You don't know any language now because you still want to implement it. Now, how will you implement? Of course, you have to learn a language. Now, Java is not a language which anyone will learn as a first language, right? So it takes time, and that's why people normally go for Python, because it is easy to learn, and since we have so many libraries available, they will use it. In fact, it's not that we cannot use other languages for sentiment analysis or NLP. Like, we can use Java, we have library for that. We can use JavaScript, we can use R, but Python is widely used in terms of NLP and sentiment analysis. Now, if you change our domain to enterprise, now example, in enterprise we have, let's say we are working with big data, you are working with fraud detection, you are working with, let's say, security. In this term, since you are working in the enterprise and most of the softwares have built in Java, so your team may force you to use Java for machine learning. And it's quite possible, because you might be implementing a small module of machine learning in a big project, and the entire project is built on Java. So of course, what makes sense here is to use Java. So in terms of fraud detection, in terms of security, you might prefer Java here. I'm not saying this cannot be done with Python, but then people normally prefer Java here. And now if you change the domain, let's say if you are focusing on robots, if you are focusing on speech, if you're focusing on games, the widely used language, you have guessed it right, it's C and C++. Because already we build games using C and C++, right? You don't want to make it heavy using JVM concepts and then Python interpreter. So it makes more sense to use C and C++ there. And then we have some other fields as well where you can implement R. Again, you can just go to Google and search for machine learning in R, and you will get different domains available, and different domains where R is very famous. Now you might be thinking we can use JavaScript as well, right? Because we have this new framework now, TensorFlow.js. Initially people were using Python, but now thanks to TensorFlow.js we can use JavaScript as well. And that's right. So people who are into web development world or front-end development world, if they want to get into AI, of course they will prefer JavaScript, right? Because that's the best language they know. So it will be easier for them to implement, and Google can attract more developers who work on who knows JavaScript. So those are the factors using which you can select. So the first one is, of course, you will see the ranking, but you cannot totally depend upon the ranking because we have two more factors. The first one is the domain which you are working on. So if your domain says, hey, you want to work on games or AI in games, of course, you might prefer C or C++ over Python there. Or maybe if you want to work on enterprise, you might prefer Java, and if you are working on NLP, you will prefer Python. Or let's say you already worked on Java a lot, let's say you have experience of 10 years and now you want to get into AI, so you can still implement everything in AI using Java. Of course, you can select any language. There is no best language for AI at least at this point, but yes, Python is the preferred one because of two reasons. One is we have it's an easy language to learn and we have so many libraries available there. So that's it. That's how you choose the best language. If you have any more comments or you have any suggestions, let me know in the comment section. If you're enjoying my videos, click on the like button. And if you are new to this channel, we normally post a lot of videos on different technologies like blockchain. Python is on the way. Then we have Java. So if you're new to this channel, make sure you click on that subscribe button. So thank you so much, everyone. Bye-bye.